All right, here we are.
Okay.
Welcome back again to Gadfly City Live with me, Monica Cardenas. Don't forget to subscribe to Gadfly City on Substack and YouTube so you don't miss an episode, especially because we'll have national political columnist Dick Polman back every month now to talk all things politics. He was here last month to talk about the Swalwell scandal. He was the national political writer at Philadelphia Inquirer and wrote political columns for the NPR website in Philadelphia. He now writes a weekly column on Substack called Subject to Change and is writer in residence at University of Pennsylvania. So, thanks for being back on, Dick.
My pleasure. Thank you, Monica.
And as usual, I plan to talk about some of your most recent columns on Subject to Change. And the one yesterday was about messaging on the Democratic side. And we had sort of a new a new topic to introduce under that umbrella news yesterday of the $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund.
Quote, quote, unquote.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about that before we get into everything else?
Yeah. At the risk of numbing your viewers who are numb already to everything that comes out of the Trump administration, the Department of Justice, and I should put justice in quote marks, I suppose,
Mhm.
have come up with a plan to a slush fund, in essence, worth $1.8 billion of taxpayers' money, because that's the important factor here, that will be set aside for, let's just say, Trump allies who feel they've been aggrieved by federal investigations or federal court convictions, most notably January 6th insurrectionists.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, and it's basically a daylight robbery that's gone on. It announced it yesterday. And Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general, who was Trump's personal defense attorney for a few years, was testifying about it on Capitol Hill. But people on Capitol Hill, I mean, it's their job to appropriate money. It's there in Article 1 of the Constitution. And so the idea that by fiat that Trump can decide to set aside a $1.8 billion to bail out his friends or his the people who were beating up on police officers on Capitol Hill. There's no precedent for anything like that. And
Mhm.
the thing that we're talking, you were just mentioned, I did a column yesterday about Democratic messaging and how it's often been inadequate in the past. And I was suggesting that there's been any number of things now that Trump has been doing that's basically been ripping off the taxpayer. And I was saying that these are things that the Democrats should call a Trump tax. And
Mhm.
that people should, I think, can probably understand that they're getting fleeced now. And so this $1.8 billion, this is taxpayer money that was not appropriated by Congress, that none of us who pay taxes have asked for. And I think one of the things that I saw today was that a number of Democrats on Capitol Hill are determined to push back heatedly on this with perhaps some hearings of their own. I mean, they don't have the power to pass anything, but they can hold hearings of their own to show exactly that this is, an unprecedented theft, really, of the public coffers. So what I was
Mhm.
going to suggest here, because I was writing yesterday about how Democrats should just hammer the term Trump tax to all these things that are going on. Um, I was thinking there was a Republican congressman who was in power in the 90s named Newt Gingrich, who some viewers might remember. And he was very effective at messaging. Because he was basically saying, we're the party, Republicans are the party of lower taxes, he used to say. And his big slogan, his big mantra was, he would talk to the public, he'd say, it's your money. And he said that in every single forum. Republicans said that in every forum. It's your money. Sometimes they would say, it's your money, not theirs, i.e., not the government's money. And that's, I think, what the Democrats should be doing now over and over 24/7. It's saying to the public, hey, this is your money, folks, that
Mhm.
they're playing with, and you didn't ask for that. That's a long answer to your question, Monica.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, the fund, um, proves is an added talking point to the point you were making in your initial column, which was about, using the Trump tax as the winning message for Democrats this leading into the midterms. Um, Before the news of this $1.8 billion slush fund, what were some of the other things that played into this Trump tax that you thought would be effective?
Yeah. Well, one of them would be the ballroom that he wants to build, which was
Mhm,
ballyhooed originally when he was talking originally. If anybody's going to believe him at face value, he was saying this was all going to be paid for with private donor funds,
mhm,
billionaires who support him. Um, Come to find out now that he's basically asked Republicans, his allies or his the doormats, Republican doormats on Capitol Hill, to insert $1 billion into appropriation bills for the ballroom, which would also be public money.
mhm,
And there's any number of ways to do that to talk about this. Um, Republicans last fall decided they decided they weren't going to extend there were certain tax credits and subsidies for Obamacare, that people who sign up for Obamacare were really getting help to for affordable health coverage, and they decided to let those subsidies expire. So now a lot of people are losing their health coverage, or they're switching to plans with incredibly high deductibles and incredibly high premiums.
mhm,
So that's money out of their pockets too. That's de facto a Trump tax. I think that, I mean, there's many other examples in the column, but I think the bottom line, what I was saying, I don't think I actually wrote this particular line, but I was basically saying, it's not just, you don't just, what they're doing is they're taxing you all the time now. Groceries going up because
mhm,
of the war in Iran. How could I forget
mhm,
this? Groceries going up because of the war in Iran. Building materials going up because stuff's arriving late, or diesel fuel costs
mhm,
are rising rapidly. Diesel fuel is what you need to deliver the stuff to market. The gas at the pump, of course, averaging 4.50
mhm,
a gallon. That's because of the war in Iran. So this is money coming out of your pockets all the time.
mhm.
So it's not just not you're not just paying on April 15th with your
Right.
tax return. People are paying now every day. Um,
And costs of living were the main reason, people turned to Trump in the last election. So it
right.
seems like this would be a huge opportunity for Democrats to use to make some big wins in the midterms.
Well, yeah, I was
Um,
arguing for that point. They have the wind at
yeah.
their back with the polls, is what I was saying.
Yeah, yeah. But, as you said in your piece that, Democrats aren't great at messaging historically. So can you tell us a little bit about that issue and, like, how you've seen that occur in,
Yeah.
recent
Well,
years?
I've been covering politics for a really long time, and I certainly want to have us, I wouldn't want us to stroll too far down memory lane because there's many examples in the past. But Republicans just seem to have they come from, a lot of Republicans come from the private sector. They understand marketing, they understand selling, they understand
Mhm,
the value of a simple slogan, endlessly hammered. Whereas Democrats are much more, they're more nuanced, not only more nuanced, they're reactive, and they have sort of layers and layers of Democratic consultants who sort of fight with each other about what messaging should be, and they also, I hate to say it, and uh, I want to say this the best way I can, but Democrats often trust too much in the ability
a
of
moment. Oh, here he is.
okay, we're on still. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
that, that when Republicans go after Democrats with some very simplistic sloganeering. A lot of times Democrats just say, well, the public, they're not going to believe that, so we don't
Mhm.
really have to hit back. We don't have to like go tit for tat on these things because the public's not going to buy these arguments. That's one of the things that hurt. I'm going back to 1988 when Michael Dukakis ran against George Bush Sr. Um, in 2004 when John Kerry ran against George Bush II. Um,
Mhm.
and Kerry was a war hero, but the Republicans worked up these ads, made it sound like the medals he got were phony or something. And the Kerry camp was like, "Oh, people aren't going to believe that." Well, they did. Um,
Mhm.
and so, but here's one of the main differences is in terms of actually trying to work out messaging. Big contrast. Republicans have built up this massive conservative media, quote unquote, machine, led by Fox News since 1996. And they are, unapologetically pro-Republican, and they deliver they've done it for Trump and they did it for Bush. So they deliver this message nakedly over and over 24/7,
Mhm.
and the audience buys it, that they built up. And they've been shameless about it, despite the fact that Fox News paid out $780 million court settlement a couple years ago when they were caught blatantly lying about the
Right.
outcome of the 2020 election. So, so this conservative media complex, if you want to call it that, is vast. And by contrast, Democrats don't have anything like that. They've never built up anything equivalent of that. What they've done is they basically trusted in the mainstream media
Mhm.
to deliver their message. And the problem with that is mainstream media, even though a lot of most journalists probably are sympathetic to Democratic policies, etc., the problem there is that uh, mainstream journalists also feel the need to hold both sides, including the Democrats, accountable.
Mhm.
And so, you saw a lot of tough New York Times coverage of Hillary Clinton about her emails in 2016. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so there's an asymmetry there. The
Yeah.
Republicans have all these megaphones working sometimes in concert, and the Democrats don't have anything like it. So it gets kind of fractured on the way out.
Mhm. Mhm. I can see that. What do you think the, Republican message would be leading into the midterms if you had to guess?
That's a really that's a really good question. I'm not sure. All the polls seem to indicate that the Democrats have like something like a 10-point advantage on would you like a Democratic House or a Republican House? And there's all these reports in the media now that a lot of Republican strategists are very worried about the midterms. So what are they going to cook up for Trump? First of all, you can't cook up anything for Trump because he's his own messenger and he's just going to pick up his phone and put something up there at 2 in the morning.
Mhm.
Um, but I would think it's just going to be something like, he's keeping America strong, and Democrats are, woke socialists,
Mhm.
who are going to uh, you know, uh, uh, gender convert your kids, and he's been saying stuff like that. Again, there's a senatorial candidate in Texas, Democratic candidate named James Tallarico,
Mhm.
um, who's doing pretty well in the polls. I don't know if he can win. It is Texas, but Trump attacked him the other day, saying, "Oh, he's got like 6 genders," or something like that. So I think he'll just push back on 2 tracks. One will be keep America strong. Prices are going to get better. That's the
Mhm.
patriotic thing to do. I don't know if I don't know if it's going to work. I can't think of what else they would possibly do. I mean, I
Mhm.
think what we're seeing now, it's analogous to, because of my institutional memory here, to me, it feels like analogous to the midterm elections of 2006 when George W. Bush was really, really encumbered by Iraq, the war in Iraq. And
Mhm.
Democrats made huge gains. They won both houses. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know if that's possible now for the Dems, but I think they've got. I think it's one of the reasons the Republicans are trying so hard to sort of rework the congressional maps and pick up more,
Right, right.
just by the way they're drawing the boundaries.
Yeah,
But I don't know if that can actually work in time.
hmm, just, putting on my feminist hat here, I would imagine that, you drew that comparison to 2006, but it feels like the world, Americans there's so much more misogyny built in and sexism into our politics than
Yes.
there was before. So while I can see Republicans maybe leaning into like a strength argument with the various wars engaged in, um, I'm not sure. I'm worried that that might be more effective than in 2006 when there were there was so much more frustration with the war in Iraq.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Actually, you made me think of something about the messaging issue again. Part of the problem in 2016 when Hillary Clinton was running and everybody thought she was going to win was, they had some messaging problems. She had different things and that going on, and nobody could quite land on one. But I think what happened there also was there was a lot of misogyny
Mhm,
in the
mhm,
electorate that was sort of under the radar that a lot of people
mhm.
were not picking up on because a lot of people don't necessarily want to tell pollsters that they feel that way. And I
Yeah.
remember, I remember that summer talking to a woman, a Democratic operative, I guess you could call her, in Philadelphia, and I was saying, "Well, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good for Clinton, don't you think?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. I'm not so sure. The misogyny out there, people aren't really picking up on that." And I, in
Mhm,
my naivete, said, "Oh, come on. You don't really think it's going to, vis-a-vis Trump, that it's going to happen, do you?"
mhm.
And it's been now
And it
proven
did.
twice. It's been proven twice.
Yeah, and I think one of the more effective ads for Trump before the last election was the one against Kamala Harris that said, something about how she advocated for trans rights, right? She's for they, them, something like that, was one of the ads that they just hammered, ahead of the election that people really remembered. So, I think those sort of hateful ideas, might connect to the sort of macho strength argument for these wars, and that
Right.
could
It
be a
could.
distraction.
I don't want to suggest that you might be worrying too much. Maybe it's just also, we protect ourselves from being too optimistic now, right?
Yeah.
But I go on every poll I've seen of all kinds says that support for the war in Iran is extremely thin, and when you break it down between men and women, women are even much more
Mhm.
opposed to it than men. Um,
Mhm.
the thing about Kamala Harris, that ad, that was because she had said something in an early, I don't know, it was like back in 2019 or something about, yes, well, should use maybe some federal money, to
Mhm.
help
Mhm.
transgender conversions or something to that effect. And yes, that ran heavily in on football games, and it did make a difference. And the Democrats didn't really have they didn't come up, her campaign
Counter.
didn't come up with
Mhm.
an answer again for that.
Mhm.
Now, what I think might be different this time is if this messaging about, to saying to the public, it's your money. It shouldn't be getting ripped off at the grocery store. It shouldn't be getting ripped off about the ballroom. It shouldn't be getting ripped off about the slush fund. That is meat and potatoes, kitchen table
Yeah.
stuff. Economics. There's like nothing about cultural issues in there whatsoever. And that's something I think the Democrats need to basically step back on
Mhm.
a little bit, at least for this particular campaign. That's really almost not in play. If people are
Mhm.
feeling the pinch in their bottom line, you know, go after that and stay with that to the exclusion of anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. You wrote last week about the, MAGA dropouts that Democrats should be willing to welcome into the fold.
Right.
if this messaging works for Democrats, if they embrace the Trump tax and that's effective, then I would expect there will be a lot more MAGA dropouts. So, who do you think they're likely to be MAGA
Yeah,
dropouts? And by MAGA dropouts, I should say you mean people who were supportive of Trump previously and have turned against him recently.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, and there is a most Republicans still, if you look at the polls, it's something like 85% or whatever Republicans are still supporting Trump, but a 15% drop off is not insignificant. And they're already out there. I mean, I guess in my own lingo, I consider them kind of like, soft Republicans or independent.
Mhm,
Or some of them consider themselves to be independent voters, but they've typically voted Republican, but they consider themselves independent. And there's a lot of, I mean, I know some of this is, well, that's the statistic. About 15% have dropped out. Anecdotally, there's people out there every single day. I see them interviewed. I see them online who, say, I voted for him two or three times, and I really feel, I quoted a few, I think, in my piece, that
mhm,
some of them feel dumb, they feel they've been had, and worse, they've said worse. And so it's a question of, the reason I was thinking about doing the piece was I hear people all the time, people who've been against Trump since from the beginning, they read those comments or they see those people quoted, and their first reaction to these people is kind of like, well, I'll clean this up and just basically for you, I'll say, that's just too bad, and it's
mhm,
usually a lot blunter than that. It's like, go stew in it. This is your own fault. You know,
mhm,
I have one friend in particular who he's got a next door neighbor who voted for Trump, and he still refuses to talk to the guy. I probably won't even to go over for a cup of sugar, proverbially. So there's a lot of feeling like let these people stew. They cause it and whatever. But if Democrats are going to build what's that old term, a big tent, if they're going to
mhm.
broaden their coalition, um, that's it's politics is addition, not subtraction. Good
Yeah,
politics.
yeah.
And so I think they have to to listen to these people and then say, all right, so you're dropping out from Trump. We understand why you're dropping out, but then it's up to the Democrats to say, okay, so let's hear a little bit more again about why you voted for him in the first place. What did we Democrats, where did we fail
Mhm.
to reach you initially that you even did that? And how can we
Right.
do better, not just to welcome you in, but to keep you around? And a lot of
Yeah.
that might be like, I don't know, white working class voters, white low information voters, or less educated voters, mostly white. Those are the ones who I think are really sort of grist for conversation.
Hmm. Okay.
So,
Well, we'll see what happens.
what else can we
Um,
say but that?
thank you again for being here, and as a reminder, Dick will be back with us again next month and on a monthly basis after that. He's on Substack at Subject to Change, and don't forget to subscribe to Gadfly City on Substack and YouTube. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye, Monica.